Well, this wasn't the video I thought I'd be making today, but I saw the clips cropping up from the Finn McKenty interview, and I wanted to give my own take, especially since there was so much negativity floating around the topic. I assume anyone watching this video is already familiar with the situation, but just in case you're not, quick recap of the scenario is that Finn McKenty, who is a pretty well-known YouTuber in the alternative music space, recently retired from YouTube pretty quietly, but interview recently surfaced where he had some pretty inflammatory remarks regarding his time as a music YouTuber and his relationship with music. And understandably, that's caused a bit of churn amongst his fans and his peers.
Like, is that why you started making videos, just because of all the negativity?
No, it's because like I don't really have any interest in music, so I was just doing it for the money, and I hit my financial goals, and so there's really just no reason for me. Like I don't have to keep doing it, so I'm not going to spend a bunch of. I'm not, our time on this earth is limited. Like, don't spend it doing shit you don't have to do if you don't want to. It's like I made enough money from this. I don't have to keep making videos about System of a Down, so I'm going to stop.
Man, so you really didn't enjoy it at all? There's just like no part of you that was like, oh, I'm excited to talk about this band today or anything like that. It was always just completely transactional for you.
Yeah, I don't have any interest in music at all.
Right on. Yeah, so you don't miss it then. That's what you're getting at.
No.
Yeah.
Well, the money is nice, but I made enough from it that I'm good.
As you can imagine, a lot of people are jumping on this clip and calling Finn anything from a poser or to a grifter, and I think that's a pretty reasonable response given what he said. But I think anybody who's familiar with his later content would agree with me that Finn was a pretty transparent about his disillusionment with his audience and the content he was making. Looking at Finn's earlier videos, it was quite apparent that he was drawing a lot from his personal experience, and his videos had quite a few anecdotes that added a nice personal touch, and that's a lot of what drew me to his content to begin with. So naturally, when you make content that draws on your past experiences, you're going to run out eventually. And so when Finn did, he pivoted to new topics that he was interested in. And those revolved around a lot of newer artists in the alternative scene that weren't necessarily like the early 2000s pop punk and metal bands his audience was more familiar with. He focused a lot more on the emo rap and more avant-garde artists.
So at that time, I was making a lot more videos about stuff like emo rap at the time, trap metal. I made a video about like sad boy pop punk. And in general, I just sort of went out of my way to include a lot of newer artists. So, for example, my video about what killed pop punk, at the end of that, I talked about a lot of newer artists that were sort of embodying the spirit of pop punk.
And understandably, a lot of his viewers who'd come to expect the early 2000s focused content that he'd been producing didn't enjoy the newer topics, and that's totally fair. Now, personally, I enjoyed quite a bit of this content. He recommended some artists that I wouldn't have checked out otherwise, and he actually had a rather positive message to go along.
If you don't like MGK or Olivia Rodrigo, that's totally cool. You don't have to, but you should still be happy about the fact that they are so successful, because guess what? A rising tide lifts all boats.
He was really encouraging his viewers to be more accepting of new genres, being more welcoming to new fans, and was also giving out a lot of really good life advice, whether it be, interpersonal, relationship, career advice, or just, generally good life advice. So at this point, he had the choice to either make content about topics he was interested in or content that would be financially successful. And since this was his career, it was really a no-brainer.
So to the people who would say, well, just make whatever content you want and don't worry about what people think or say, or don't read the comments, it's like, well, I feel like that's not really realistic, because number one, this is how, or at least part of how I support our family. Number two, as far as not reading the comments, well, that's an option. But then what's the point of doing this, right? I mean, I like interacting with people. I like having conversations with people.
So at this point, his content pivoted to focusing on drama in the scene, usually surrounding large personalities like MGK or Ronnie Radke, or a nostalgia-based content that he usually dubbed his Wikipedia summaries, which he was transparent about.
Number two, I added more of my own sort of personality and opinions and thoughts and analysis and stuff to those videos back then, which I stopped doing.
So his content lost that personal touch, and I quit watching most of his videos. I did notice after a while, though, that I was no longer getting notifications about new videos, and I'd assumed that he'd quit YouTube and Irish goodbyed. So I was pretty surprised when I saw the interview crop up on YouTube, and rather than bow out quietly, Finn decided to take a burnt earth approach to his departure, which I agree with the community was a bit in poor taste. However, I don't think it's fair to conclude that this whole thing was a grift. He was clear that YouTube was his source of financial stability, and anybody making YouTube videos at that scale is clearly doing it in some part for the money. Also, doing a job that you don't enjoy or making a product that you don't love doesn't make you a grifter. I mean, how many people work a job they don't enjoy but still put on a customer service face? As far as being a poser, I think Finn was pretty clear that he didn't enjoy a lot of the music that he was discussing. I don't think there was anything fake about that.
I'm just going to tell you the facts about music that I know that you guys like. So, for example, I always used to say that I would never do a video about System of a Down because I don't like System of a Down and I'm not interested in them. But I know my audience likes them, and I was like, all right, well, I'll do a video about System of a Down. So I did, and people liked it.
I think the comments in his interview were fairly consistent. If anything, maybe a bit exaggerated. I mean, clearly you don't gather the breadth of experience or anecdotes that he had about the music scene without having enjoyed it, at least in some part in his life. But I really think that comment about not enjoying music was directed more at his the topics of his later videos. This really feels more like him putting in his 2 weeks and dropping the per my previous email lingo and just calling the email recipient an idiot. Not the most socially savvy move, but clearly he was trying to distance himself from his previous audience as he began his new career on LinkedIn. At the end of the day, my impression is that Finn was passionate about music in his youth and early adulthood, and saw the opportunity to turn that passion into a career. Eventually, he ran out of content that both he and his audience enjoyed, so he pivoted to more lucrative topics and began to dislike his job. And like any sane person, when the opportunity presented itself, he quit. He's doing something that makes him happier, and you can clearly see in the interview his attitude change from somewhat confrontational to engaged as the topic shifted from music to marketing. I think the only real drama stems from him dropping that customer service voice that he had adopted in the later part of his YouTube tenure. Really, the sad bit in all of this is that music went from something that he was clearly passionate about to something that he despised. Whether you hate the guy's guts or are sad to see him go, I think there's a cautionary tale to be found in all of this. If you're considering turning a passion into your livelihood, there's a good chance you won't enjoy it in the same way that you used to, or you'll find yourself stuck like Finn was. And this goes beyond just career advice. Any hobby that you take too seriously, you run the risk of ruining. I learned this lesson with sports as a kid. When I was younger, I used to enjoy playing golf with my grandfather, and in high school, thought I would try out for the golf team. I worked my ass off, and I really improved. I was proud of myself, but afterward, I quit playing for years. I lost any enjoyment from it, and it really took me approaching it much more casually with friends for me to start enjoying it again. There are a lot of really talented people in the world. If you want to be truly great at something, you need to fully commit and potentially engage with it in a way that's less than enjoyable. That being said, it's totally fair to take a more relaxed approach and just treat something as a hobby, in which case just focus on having fun with it. And this goes for any hobby, whether it's music, video games, sports, whatever. So all that aside, I appreciate all of Finn's contributions to the community and hope he's able to pursue something that he's passionate about and will make him happy. So that's all I have for today. Remember, don't take life too seriously and be excellent to each other.